Alright guys, this is how you get fluent watching anime, step-by-step guide. Alright, so a thing about me is that I actually learned Japanese entirely through anime pretty much, Like I didn't really consume that much YouTube content when it comes to, when I was learning Japanese. Like I only used otaku media, basically things like anime, manga, light novels, as my source of learning the Japanese language, right? And a lot of people think that you shouldn't learn anime from Japanese just because they have unnatural Japanese. And the reality is they're just clueless, right? Because they don't realize that the Japanese they speak in anime and the Japanese they speak in real life, it's still the same language. It's still Japanese. Yes, maybe there's like that 10% flair, that 10% difference of how they speak the language, but 90% of the language is the same, right? Like 90% of the language in any domain is the same. Whether you're watching the news, whether you're listening to everyday conversation, whether you're listening to a professor speak about a certain scientific topic, whether reading anime content, 90% of Japanese is still the same. You can learn the basic grammar patterns, the basic vocabulary that's used in Japanese, right? So just saying that you shouldn't learn, you shouldn't use anime to learn Japanese, it's completely like just false. Because the reality is, when you're trying to learn Japanese, you want to get a lot of inputs first. So that's the first step towards getting fluent in a language and getting fluent using Japanese in anime is by focusing on input. What does this mean? Well, this is basically just immersing yourself in the language through reading and listening a lot, right? So you're just basically going to watch a ton of anime, right? Get a lot of listening in. And then once you get really good at listening, then you can go over to reading manga, right? You can go over to, reading light novels and hard books like this, because this will really ameliorate your vocabulary by doing things like this, right? So, they just don't really understand, because we're not using anime to learn how to speak, all right? Speaking will come later, okay? Remember, like when you get enough input, the speaking will come naturally. You'll be able to naturally speak after a certain period of time once you immerse yourself in the language. What we're using anime for is just learning how to understand the language, right? Like I don't use anime personally to learn how to speak the language. I go to Japan and talk to Japanese people for that. If I want to learn how to speak natural Japanese, as they say, I just go, when I'm already fluent, by the way, and then just learn how they speak. I was able to learn how to distinguish anime Japanese and real life Japanese by just talking to Japanese, native speakers in their country. I was in Japan and I talked to a lot of Japanese people, so it was really easy to grasp, what was unnatural and what was natural. Because here's the thing, I was already fluent in the language. Like your brain is not dumb, right? Like here's the thing with anime, right? It's like, it's still Japanese. So it's like, it's unnatural in that context. So when it comes to like Japanese, it's like, anime Japanese is not actually unnatural. It's just unrealistic, right? There's a difference, right? Because if you're fighting to death, right, in a battlefield, then maybe you speak that language they use in anime. Maybe if you're like in the, like fighting a samurai, you would speak that. But everyday life today, like we're not in the situations. So it's not that the language is unnatural. It's just that the situations are natural. But if you're fighting like a gang, you would actually end up speaking like that anyway. So it is still natural, right? It's just in the situation that, we're in everyday life of going to a job, going to school, like we don't necessarily need to talk like that. You know what I mean? So like they're just complete clueless because they don't understand that we can use anime to really learn and comprehend the language, right? That's the whole point of using anime to get really good at Japanese, is to literally use anime just to learn how to comprehend the language, right? Just to learn how to understand how to listen to the language, right? With their ears, and learn how to read the language, right? We're just using anime for that. That's the only reason why we use anime. We're not using anime to learn how to speak, because remember, the speaking comes later, okay? Speaking comes later, but the first step is to use anime to learn words, learn the most common grammar patterns, and just learn a lot of the language. Because the thing with anime, guys, is that they use a lot of hard vocabulary, right? And that's one of the great things about anime, is that you realize that they'll be using words that are very uncommon in language, right? And you can actually learn how to read very sophisticated articles and books. I was able to read my Japanese grandpa after 2 years of immersing myself in Japanese. And this is because, I used anime as my main source. And, even like in this book, like this, I'll recommend this like this light novel for me is like really easy. But even for like a light novel like this, like Classroom Elite, I was able to like, you can find some rare words in here that you can find in the dissertation. This right here, the words that will be in here will be used in like an article for like a doctorate degree. Like I'm telling you guys, like, when they say don't use anime, they're just completely lying. Because here's the thing, like, because I understood anime first, right? It was like the hardest genre because I was like consuming like really hard stuff. I was like reading Berserk, I was reading Kingdom, I was watching like, you know, like even Hunter x Hunter and Attack on Titan. Like those are really hard shows to understand. They use very sophisticated, you know, politics and all those types of vocabulary that by the time I was listening to everyday normal Japanese people speak on the streets, I was like, why is this language so easy? It's like so easy, dude. Like when I went to Japan, it was so mind-numbingly easy to understand all these Japanese people. It was so mind-numbing. I was like, why are they speaking so easily? Because when I was watching my anime, I was used to the hard stuff. I was used to all the hard, you know, animes and words they're using there. But when I went over to Japan, I was like, they're just like speaking super easy Japanese. So that's the thing, guys. Like when you actually understand anime, you're guaranteed to understand the everyday life stuff because the everyday life stuff is like a level below the anime. So that's another reason why you should use anime for Japanese, right? It's because you can learn those harder words and those harder like sophisticated words. Like there's like fantasy words, historical words. There's like politics, especially with Attack on Titan. They have like a lot of politics, and there's a lot of political words you're going to need to know, right? And you can learn that watching anime. Like you don't have to learn that like, you know, just reading a political book, right? You can just learn that watching Attack on Titan, like legit, bro. You know, like you don't have to, you know what I mean? And it's like a lot more fun because it's like when you're consuming a fictional story, it's like it's a lot more fun to learn these words, right? It makes it really meaningful because you're really attached to the story, right? So it's a very fun way to learn Japanese and to achieve a very high level fluency. So yeah, guys. So the first step would be to understand the language through watching anime, right? And then what I recommend is like combining a little bit of Anki with, you know, watching anime. What I did was every single time there was like a word that I didn't know, you know, I would try to Anki that. Now, if you're in the beginning stages and you don't understand anything, then I would just recommend that you Anki the words that stick out to you because there's a lot of words you don't know anyway, so there's no point in literally memorizing every single word. But I recommend putting the words that you don't know into Anki if you're intermediate. Like if there's like I recommend like 10 words per day. So if you can go watch an anime, and you watch anime like Hunter x Hunter, and there's like only 10 words that you don't know, then just put that into Anki, right? And just do that 10 words a day, and that's like a really good rate to really memorize any words that do pop out in anime, right? And then literally just do that, and that's it, right? And then once you achieve like 95% of, you know, understand, you know, once you achieve like 95% comprehension in Japanese, then that's when you can start to, you know, learn how to speak, right? And the best way to do that is to just, you know, go to the actual country, right? There's no other better way to learn how to speak Japanese than to actually go to the country and speak to people, right? Because here's the thing, like now you have a base. See, you're not like all these other language learners that, you know, study Japanese, they're not fluent at all, they don't understand Japanese at all, and then try to go to the country and speak the language. No, you're different. Because you used like all this time, you spent like 2 to 3 years like trying to understand the language, right? Trying to understand anime. And now you're at a point now where you understand like a 95% of anime, right? So when you go to Japan, like you're gonna be able to understand everything that people say to you. Because remember, anime is up here in difficulty, everyday conversations down here. So it's like you go to Japan and it's like it's gonna be so easy to understand them. Because it's like, that was my experience. I was like, why is this so easy? So that's how I would speak. So once you learn how to actually understand like 95% comprehension in anime, then when you go to Japan, it's like, you know, and you can learn how to speak. Like super easily, guys. And here's the thing. You might speak a little bit anime-like in the beginning for like maybe like 2 to 3 days. But then after that, you like quickly adjust and know what's natural and unnatural. So like you quickly adjust and be like, okay, so this is how they talk in anime and this is how they talk in real life. Because here's the thing. People are going to be talking to you, bro. Like that's how you will know what to say back to them is what type of language do they use to talk to you. But here's the thing. If you didn't understand what they were saying to you, then how are you going to replicate that back? See, you have a solid foundation now because you used anime to learn Japanese. So now when they go to talk to you, right, and you'll be able to replicate those same grammar patterns back to them, right? You're just imitating them. Like that's all language is. You're just imitating what they're saying to you. So when you use anime to learn Japanese and then you go to the country, speak to the people, they speak to you in normal Japanese, then you can learn normal Japanese in like 2-3 days, bro. It takes 3 days to learn normal Japanese, bro. Like shut up, bro. Like I see all these people saying like it's unnatural, bro. Like you guys don't understand. Like okay. Like for example, like this is like a sentence right here I'm gonna read out, right? It's like it says, 一歩クラスから飛び出せば堀北ガールを守れないからだろう. Like からだろう is probably like a very informal way of saying でしょ, right? So like if someone speaks to you as like からでしょ, and then like, you know, and then you're used to hearing 守れないからだろう, right? It's like you can just quickly adjust to being like, okay, you can just say 守れないからでしょ. You know? It's like, dude, it's so easy to adjust Japanese, guys. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, You know what I mean? Like, daro to this show, it's the same word, but it's just one's more informal, one's less formal. And you can quickly adjust like this. All right? Because when you're speaking to people in Japan, you gotta be a little bit more polite because you don't know them, right? Now, once you become friends, then you can start incorporating like more informal language. But this is very easy to, get, right? Because you're already fluent. So yeah, guys, that's how I would do it. And that's how I would use anime to learn Japanese, guys. And that's how, I did it, Basically, to recap, I just basically immersed myself for 2 years watching anime, reading manga. Once I achieved a very high level of comprehension in Japanese, then I went to Japan for 3 months and talked as much as I could, and I was pretty much fluent at that point. So yeah, guys, do that and you get freaking good.